Joined now in the studio by State Security Minister David Mahlopo for a discussion on just how safe South Africa is from terrorist attacks. Minister, thank you very much for coming in, and all the best for 2015.
Thank you very much, Dan, and all your viewers at home.
Yeah, we appreciate you making the time to come and talk to us, particularly at this time when we've all been gripped by what's been going on in West Africa recently, and also what's been happening in France. And now overnight, we hear in Belgium, the police, they've been raiding suspected terrorists, and they've killed 2 and they've arrested 1 individual. Just come closer home in South Africa now, just broadly first, how safe are we?
Well, we just have to note that terrorism has become the biggest international threat to peace and security, but more importantly to development. As a continent, we are doing a lot of collaboration. Our heads of state in the African Union have taken a lot of decisions, and there is a collaboration. But we must admit that terrorism is becoming more complex. It's more complex because it starts to include matters of arms, drugs trafficking, human trafficking, issues of kidnapping for ransom, issues of mercenaries, the issues of your illicit activities that are classified as part of transnational crimes that are happening. But we should note that our region is relatively safe as compared to the regions in the East Africa, West Africa, North Africa, and the Central Africa. Because more recently, as a region, we should note that we have taken some steps in terms of our regional mechanism. We have our own subcommittee on state security. On matters of counter-terrorism, we have agreed on a regional early warning center where we will be able to share information on intelligence.
Does it involve all the SADC member states, this regional body you're talking about?
It involves all the members of the regional states in terms of the early warning system and the state security, because as part of the region. But more importantly, we are linked up with the initiatives at an African Union level, which is we have an African Center for Study and Research on Terrorism, your SRT, where we share experiences about issues of terrorism. We also share information about individuals, groups that are actually doing those particular activities. But more importantly, we have an intelligence gathering structure at a continental level called your Committee on Intelligence for State Security for Africa. That will bring all this information so that we will be able to act timelessly.
Minister, we know how important information is, the gathering of intelligence and interpreting that, analyzing it, and then acting on it. I think on the acting part, I just want to come there now. I mean, now and again in the past in South Africa, we've heard of some armed group, especially in the right wing, being found training somewhere, all these secret camps that sometimes we hear about existing. Can you assure us as South Africans today, as you sit here, that currently, as far as we know, inside South Africa, our own borders, we don't have some funny terror cell brooding itself somewhere?
We should just be able to indicate that this South African government led by President Zuma, we have secured the country at an important intervals because of our security forces intelligence community. Remember the 2010 World Cup, when everybody thought it's going to be a disaster. We did well. Remember the issues of the Buremark because of our intelligence capability and the terror that prior to the elections in 1994 we're experiencing. The terror in Cape Town in terms of drugs and gangsterism that was there, we're able to claim that one down. And if you look at the recent one, the issues of the guys that were trying to actually disrupt the ANC conference in Mangaung to try to kill the leadership of the ANC, we're able through our intelligence gathering and our security forces to apprehend them. We can be in a position to say, South Africans, we are safe. But let's remember that there is no country that is not immune. We're all vulnerable. That's why our mechanisms that are in place in terms of sharing information with other countries of the world, both in the West, in BRICS itself, in the continent itself, looking at issues of money laundering, looking in terms of the financial activities, because our continent and our country can't become a breeding ground for terrorists. They can't recruit here. We can't allow our country to be part of the transit point for some of these activities to happen in our country.
Beyond the continent, do we collaborate with other intelligence services, like the CIA as an example?
Well, let's indicate that we are part of the multilateral institution, our mother body, the United Nations. There are structures in the United Nations where all these issues of security, peace are discussed. And there was a time when we do share information with all the necessary countries around the world, whether it's in the West, whether it's in the East. In BRICS, there is a committee that we're working with. The countries of the West, even in Europe, our intelligence agencies, we do share information. They also share information with us so that we can be able to monitor the movement of individuals, but also the movement of some of these particular goods and weapons.
Okay, next week, the World Economic Forum will be meeting again in Davos, in Switzerland. President Jacob Zuma will be there as well, participating with the ministerial delegation in business. Yesterday, they issued their risk report for 2015. They identified the questions of global conflict, the rise in global conflict, but also they identified the rise of cyber warfare as a threat to global economic growth in 2015. How are we in South Africa as far as the cyberspace is concerned from a security perspective?
Well, we need to indicate that our cabinet, as late as 2013, when we had done our assessment that terrorism is taking different forms, the cyberspace, which is a space that can advance technology and other issues, is actually prone to terrorism. We agreed and the cabinet approved the cybersecurity strategy for the country. We are having cyber initiatives that we're looking in place. But we need to do more, because most of these wars, we will be able to collapse the financial institution of other countries by hitting them from this country, or other people can use South Africa as a transit to be able to launch their attacks in other countries, like we've seen the relationship between other countries where they are hacking their systems. But more importantly, you can be able actually even to launch your ammunition using the technology that is there. As a country, we are improving our own capacity. We will want South Africans to be in a position that will go out to them, give them awareness, ensure that most of our companies in the public sector, they are having the right systems to be able to prevent any cyber terrorism and attacks.
Okay, finally, before you leave, Minister, let me just take you back to one issue you mentioned earlier about South Africa being used by terror groups either to come in or as a through point where they go through. Remember the question of Samantha Luthwaite, the white lady who was connected with the Westgate Mall attack in Nairobi 2 years ago. I mean, she reportedly stayed here. She managed to even get a job there. What would you say to that?
Well, we need to indicate that as a country, we've gone a long way to try to improve our control systems. Remember, one of the issues which is a very smart issue, is the credibility and the integrity of our document system. Our counterparts in Home Affairs, they are working around the clock to ensure that no one can be able to use that.
But Samantha managed to get a South African identity and stay here.
But we should be in a position to acknowledge that there is no system that is watertight. That's why all the time, as governments, we have a responsibility to test our systems, improve our issues of weaknesses, but more importantly, there are people that will escape the rad. That's why we'll depend on communities, that if there are any suspecting activities, look around your own home. People doing some activities that start to be suspicious, look around your own neighborhood, because as these men and women that are looking after the country, they will not be able to cover all the space. This problem of terrorism is a societal problem. Therefore, we have to be able to join hands to share the information with the security agencies so that we can be able to respond timelessly as a country.
If a Paris-type attack happened today in any of our cities, let's hope it doesn't, but if it did happen, would you be ready to deal with it?
Well, we know that President Zuma has placed a lot of emphasis on issues of security, while the issues of the economy, they're also on the radar. As we say, without any shadow of a doubt, we know who comes into our country, we know who's doing what. If you do wrong activities, we'll be able to catch you up. Therefore, our security forces, you know that they are well trained, they're amongst the best. We are able to share our own experiences in the missions of the UN across the continent. We'll be able to handle this particular situation. But then, as we know that these terrorist groups themselves, they are armed to the teeth. You will always try that if you do any operation, you want it to be bloodless as possible, but there will always be casualties.
Mr. Mahlopo, thank you very much. That's South Africa's State Security Minister David Mahlopo.